So to begin with the question being, is there life after death? This is obviously a very broad question. So it's worth thinking about what kinds of approaches we can have to this. So what kind of question is this question? And it's worth noting that this is so universal that there are many different angles that we could take. So just by having a think for a few moments, some of the ones that I came up with were theological. So obviously thinking about what do major religions have to say about this, and how should we think about um, religious claims in terms of life after death? Philosophical. So do we have good reasons to think that there is life after death? What do philosophical arguments have to say about this? Sociological. So um, do understandings of life after death vary based on different cultures? Psychological. Is there anything kind of built into the nature of the human mind that suggests we would have some proclivities towards taking certain views about life after death? And then empirical here I put with a question mark. So something that we're going to think about in our third lecture is whether there's any good empirical evidence for the existence of life after death. And this is obviously going to be quite a tricky question because um, compared to other empirical inquiries, it doesn't seem like we can go and check whether there's any life after death without ourselves dying. And so we can't go and ask anybody. So it seems like the empirical question is one that's going to be a bit more difficult. So it's unclear specifically whether this is going to be a philosophical question or an empirical question. And it's worth kind of thinking about what that distinction is going to mean for us in the course of approaching this question. So moving on then, we're going to start thinking about how to analyze philosophical questions in general. So given my background in philosophy, I'm going to treat this primarily as a philosophical question. So it's going to start by thinking about how do we analyze philosophical questions in general. And to begin with, one of the things I really want to stress to you guys is when you're approaching a question, it's really important to pick up on specific words in the question. So this is going to be important no matter what kind of essay subject you're drawing on, but it can be really important in philosophy. Why is that the case? That's the case because keywords can often be ambiguous. So what I mean by that is that these words can often have a variety of meanings which seem equally good on the surface, but may not be equally good when it comes to actually answering your question. So it's going to be worth considering a possible range of meanings and then picking one definition that seems most appropriate. So to kind of justify this claim, one example might be the perennial philosophical question, is belief in free will compatible with belief in modern physics? So this is a question about free will and determinism. And in my view, this question is really going to hinge on how you understand free will. So strong responses to this question will consider a wide range of possible definitions of free will, rather than simply deciding on one for an arbitrary reason or not investigating possible definitions at all. If you're going to answer this question effectively, it's going to be really worth your time to try and investigate what different people might mean by free will, and whether you can decide that one definition is better than another for a kind of principled reason.